Welcome to the Caribbean Leadership Radio Series, produced by the Caribbean Leadership Program under the Caribbean Center for Development Administration, CARICAD, where we provide a number of leadership development interventions tailored for the Caribbean context in support of public sector transformation as well as regional development. In this Caribbean Leadership Radio Series, we will be discussing a range of leadership issues within the public sector context which impact our national and regional development in the Caribbean.
The Caribbean Leadership Radio Series, where Caribbean leaders discuss Caribbean leadership. Here's your host, Dr. Lloyd Parks.
In today's episode, we are going to be exploring the topic of ethical leadership in the Caribbean context. And we have with us someone who knows quite a bit about this field. We have none other than Mrs. Esther Inniss. Mrs. Inniss is currently the Deputy Registrar of the Integrity Commission in Trinidad and Tobago. She has held that position since November 2017. And her general background is in the area of organizational transformation, service excellence, human resource management, and leadership and management development. She holds the Master's in Mediation Studies from the University of the West Indies. And perhaps her greatest accolade is that she is a graduate of the 5th cohort of our Caribbean Leadership Development Program. And she has worked in this area of ethical leadership extensively, both directly and indirectly. And so we have somebody in the house who knows what they're talking about. Mrs. Inniss, welcome to our program.
Thank you very much, Dr. Park. It's my pleasure to be part of this process.
Start off by sharing with us how you journeyed into the field of leadership, particularly as it relates to getting in this area of ethics.
Okay. My journey, I must say, I was lucky to have role models that helped shape and hone my leadership skills over a very long period. And for that, I feel very blessed because the role models that I had, one of which I would name Mrs. Arlene McCormy, demonstrated such ethical leadership. I mean, at the time, I did not know it was called ethical leadership. I looked at the behaviors I've been working with and watching her over the years and asking myself, what type of leader is this? I want to emulate this person. I want to embrace some of what I'm seeing in her. So my leadership journey in the public sector was permanently steered and impacted by the work relationship I had with her. The things that I admired and sought to emulate was not her tireless and relentless drive and passion for work, but rather the work ethic that I saw. I really wanted to learn more. What I noted and which drove me to become really focused on pursuing ethical leadership was the fact that this role model leader as a permanent secretary was very personable despite the workload that she had. She was considerate. She valued us as well as our contributions. And most importantly, she was always there giving of herself to us. She epitomized service. And that helped me to develop as a leader as I worked through different facets of management and leadership in the public service. At public admin, where I was stationed, when I would see my leadership journey really began to flourish, I would have had responsibility for change management and service alignment, which basically looks at service excellence across the entire public service. And so this would have been the second time I would have worked with Arlene McCormy as permanent secretary. And I really wanted to make a difference because of how critical the functions we have to perform were. And at that point in time at Ministry of Public Admin, the buzzword there was citizen-centric service delivery. And I wrapped my mind around it and recognized that we needed to ensure that our clients were always at the center of what we did. And that required us to change the way in which we operated. It required every member of my team, every member of all my colleagues to operate in a way that can only be described as ethical. And so we would have gone after rigorously a good understanding of what it meant to be an ethical leader and what values we would have seen there and wanted to continue to hold.
As you make that very valid point, tell us, what is ethical leadership and why is it important to the ordinary citizen around the Caribbean?
For me, ethical leadership is values-driven and principle leadership. As leaders, we all get to choose who we are and how we function. But for me, the term ethical leadership is not a mutually exclusive item. It is also non-negotiable for leaders and managers. So ethics and leadership, in my mind, cannot and should not be separated. So these are qualities that we can choose to embrace and adopt. But sometimes I question in the past, is there really a choice? Is this really a choice that we have? Because being ethical allows us to apply principles of honesty, fairness in relationships with both our colleagues and our clients. And remember, we were focused on client-centered service at that time. So, since ethical individuals make effort to treat everyone with whom they come in contact with as they want to be treated themselves, that's a culture that we felt we needed to embrace and definitely grow and cultivate in all the environments and organizations that I worked in.
One of the cries that we hear from citizens around the region is the cry against corruption. And it is indeed something that we constantly have to be dealing with. We're challenged to find ways and means of addressing and eliminating it. Mrs. Inniss, what are some of the specific challenges that face Caribbean leaders in the area of ethical leadership?
The area of ethical leadership in the Caribbean among its leaders is something that I think we have been grappling with for a while. And it is something that we, at least I feel, it's based on, sometimes we want to reinvent the wheel. I think there is not sufficient networking, not sufficient trusting of the process that our colleagues as leaders would have gone through. We see different Caribbean islands, especially around election time. You have, and you would have worked on so many policies and whatnot, and then you have a change of the guard, and all of that goes through the window, and you have to start over. And it really puts pressure on leaders to want to continue that whole thrust of what we have defined as ethical leadership, because for us, ethical leadership is a lifestyle, it's not a strategy. And that lifestyle, that behavior encourages us to want to ensure that there is autonomy, that there is, we encourage those around us to use their initiative. We constantly build and instill in those that are charged under us.
We're going to take a very short break. When we return, we certainly want to continue on that point of the challenges facing Caribbean leaders in the area of ethical leadership.
The Caribbean Leadership Radio Series, where Caribbean leaders discuss Caribbean leadership.
Across Caribbean public services, there is great demand for transformational leadership to create an environment that fosters innovation in public service delivery. But how do you know if your organization has this enabling environment? Grounded in research, the Caribbean Leadership Project has developed an enabling environment assessment. This provides a wide range of strategies and actions to help take public sector organizations and regional institutions to a higher level in enabling transformational leaders. To find out how you can use this assessment to foster and inspire purpose-driven leadership, to build leadership capacity for action, encourage collaboration, and support the achievement of results, visit us at www.clptoolkit.org and contact us at info@caribbeanleadership.org. Let us help your organization learn, network, succeed.
The Caribbean Leadership Radio Series, where Caribbean leaders discuss Caribbean leadership.
Welcome back to the Caribbean Leadership Radio Series. We are looking at ethical leadership in the Caribbean context, and we have with us Mrs. Esther Inniss, Deputy Registrar with the Integrity Commission in Trinidad and Tobago. Before the break, Mrs. Inniss, you were sharing with us some of the challenges facing Caribbean leaders as it relates to the exercise of ethical leadership. We ask that you continue to elaborate on that point for us.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Park. I would say that one of the top challenges that Caribbean leaders face is leading by example, walking the talk and being that role model that staff wants to emulate. Our Caribbean countries, for some reason, seem to be besettled with a lot of corruption or, ideas, and citizens are starting to be wary of our top leaders at times. And so, setting and maintaining the tone for our organization and building and sustaining our brand is critical. But that's one of the challenges facing in terms of ethical leaderships. And we have to almost ensure that we hire right, we procure persons in ways that fit within our culture so that we get the ethical elements that we want from the beginning. Sometimes there are so many competing priorities that leaders can lose their way. As leaders, though, we have to decide very early who we are and the lines that we will not cross, no matter where the pressure is coming from or what the situation. In other words, we must first define and understand our identity. We have a saying at church, you don't have time to go home and put on your church clothes. We must always be ready. And that's something I apply in my work situations also, because I have determined that situations must not be allowed to dictate our behavior. And so, therefore, for Caribbean leaders, their ethics, their principles must dictate their behavior, and that must first be determined before they find themselves in situations where, at the spur of the moment, they have to think, because it becomes automatic. And that's why ethical leadership is not mutually exclusive or optional, but something that we must all embrace. And so, for Caribbean leaders, for all leaders for that matter, I would say there are no two sides to this coin of ethical leadership. The core must be so strong that it permeates all the outer elements, so that whatever leaders do, what you see in a leader is what you get, no matter which side you turn.
In the public sector context, one of the challenges I've seen is there hasn't been as rigorous an implementation of orientation programs. And so you find there are a number of public servants now who really are not fully aware of the ethical boundaries that are contained within our rules and regulations and policies. And I wonder, to what extent do you see that as one of the challenges in ethical leadership?
It is one of the challenges that we have found ourselves facing, and we recognize that this is a strategy that we must adopt across all levels. In the past, we would focus on mid-level and junior staff when they come in. But we have recognized now that our leaders also need onboarding. And so therefore, while I worked at the Parliament, they continue with new members of Parliament, members of the Senate. They would have that orientation session to ensure that they are fully au courant with what is required of them, and even have some monitoring, ongoing coaching and mentoring as required at that level. Similar to with permanent secretaries, with deputy permanent secretaries, directors, because sometimes you come into a position from different backgrounds, and it is important that orientation just not be seen as, okay, meet and greet this one, but that the induction element, all aspect of it, to enable the new entrants to be able to perform their jobs properly. And to some extent, I think this should be infused with the thread of ethical leadership throughout. I almost want to suggest that it become one of our cross-functional teams across the Caribbean, because ethical leadership, as I indicated before, is a lifestyle, it's not a strategy. We cannot and should not ever compromise ethics and leadership, but it must become so ingrained in us, and as organizations we have to build it in through orientation and induction, that good leadership is ethical leadership. In fact, that's the only way we can lead our troops, using moral authority.
Indeed.
Only long-lasting and sustainable and time-tested methods.
You participated in our leadership development program, Cohort 5. Can you share with us how did your participation in that program enhance your own leadership capacity, particularly as it relates to ethical leadership?
The CLP experience was life-changing for me, as I would have been sharing to almost everybody who is willing to hear. And for me, ethical leadership became the way, the how. For us, it was not a situation of whether or not we should try this approach. It became more than an approach for us. Before CLP, I would say that I was efficient and probably even very efficient. In fact, I was the go-to on many occasions. However, I have to thank CLP for moving me from a clinical result-oriented leader who did not much care how things got done once it got done, to a more emotionally intelligent, ethical, and inclusive leader. And that for me was the big thing, almost slowing myself down sometimes to ensure that I embrace that inclusiveness so that everyone can be part of the common vision and mission, and we can move forward with implementation seamlessly. Ethical leadership is not this big thing that you are hearing in the world. It's about the little things. How do we treat one another? How do we respect those that we supervise, those that fall under our areas of responsibility? Are we even respected by our peers, our colleagues, those that we manage, because our behaviors may not necessarily be representative of what is expected at the top? And so the whole issue of ethical leadership, for me, must be guided by respect for values, trustworthiness, honesty, consideration, fairness. I would even say charisma, but that tends to be a bit overabused at times, because people think whatever their personality is the charisma. But we must lead in a manner that respects and the rights and dignity of others. And this has become ingrained in me through that and solidified through the CLP process.
Okay, and on that note, we are going to take a short break. We will be right back. Stay tuned.
The Caribbean Leadership Radio Series, where Caribbean leaders discuss Caribbean leadership.
Does your organization have leaders with the self-awareness and confidence to lead effectively? Can they develop high-performing teams? Can they work effectively with multiple stakeholders? And are they equipped to navigate change and complexity? For these and other leadership challenges, the Caribbean Leadership Program offers a suite of virtual, face-to-face and customized interventions to meet your needs. Our 5-day workshop on leading change and transition will provide senior executives with the mindset shift and tools to successfully lead change initiatives. Our transformational leadership development program is ideal for preparing high-potential leaders for succession to executive roles. And our mid-level leadership development program is perfect for those leading from the middle. For details on these and other offerings, visit our website at www.caribbeanleadership.org. Join us to learn, network, succeed.
the Caribbean Leadership Radio Series, where Caribbean leaders discuss Caribbean leadership.
Welcome back to the Caribbean Leadership Radio Series. Today's topic, ethical leadership in the Caribbean context. And we have with us Deputy Registrar for the Integrity Commission in Trinidad, Mrs. Esther Inniss. Mrs. Inniss, as we explore this topic of ethical leadership, we would love for you to share with us some of the initiatives that are currently being undertaken by the Integrity Commission in Trinidad and Tobago to foster ethical leadership there.
At the Integrity Commission, we pride ourselves in trying and moving to different strategies as we analyze the information that come our way. We specifically target groups of individuals that we may feel needs particular focus. And let me just give you the categories. So we will target for strategic alliances, corporation sold in terms of the Ministry of Finance. We would reach out to the head of the public service to have discussions, to hold discussions about what is happening with permanent secretaries and their responsibilities as it relates to the Integrity in Public Life Act. But even though we target senior public officers and board members, we recognize that we need to focus on the youth of Trinidad and Tobago. And so we have a public education series that really is honed towards building integrity and ethics from the ground up. So we actually have different ways in which we focus on our youth. We have a poster design project. We have partnered with another organization to pilot integrity clubs in secondary schools across Trinidad and Tobago. That would be TTTI. And we have 7 schools in that pilot right now.
That's wonderful.
Yes. We actually target tertiary level educations for tertiary level debates. Specifically for our small island of Tobago, we have an upcoming project where we will be looking at something that they are well known for in terms of speech band. And so we look to see what the interest is and use the theme of integrity and ethics to allow them to share and to display what their understanding of it is, so then we can move in and, really impact the environment, and that way build leadership. With respect to the integrity clubs, we have at the schools what we call integrity ambassadors. So from Form 6 right down the forms in those schools that are in the pilot, we actually bring them together and share with them some leadership skills, hone them from now before they even get into the schools. And of course, when I share, I have to share some of the tools that we would have learned at CLP. And so therefore, they come away enriched and more readied for the world out here that tends to be tainted with a lot of corrupt practices. And so therefore, we are not only looking at corrective measures for persons in public life or those performing public functions who are operating now, but we are targeting the youth to ensure that they are more focused and therefore less tended to move towards corrupt practices later on.
That's fantastic. What recommendations do you have for improving policy and governance arrangements to influence the practice of ethical leadership?
Recommendations that I would make would be to ensure policy documents and policies on the whole are nationally focused to ensure continuity of ideas and government initiatives. And I would say to some extent follow or learn from the examples of our Caribbean neighbors so that every 5 years we don't have to have that new kickstart or restart of policies or change in policy. We would have discussed this a bit earlier in terms of ensuring effective orientation and ongoing guidance or direction for new members of boards, and all policymakers on the standards of integrity and ethics required and expected at that level. I would recommend that there should be a clear understanding and articulation of government's vision and government policy by all senior officials and policymakers. I am hoping that we can make a thing of the past that discord that sometimes exists between policymakers and senior public officers, so that the citizens can benefit from a seamless flow and seamless relationships between the two. I would have shared already about making ethical leadership a cross-cutting team. I think that can be an excellent tool. Consistency in selection and recognition of persons of integrity that lead and manage our institutions and carry out our public policy. And also structured leadership development programs.
Indeed.
From middle level to senior levels that centers around ethical leadership.
Indeed. And if I were to add, also ensuring that the processes and systems that we already have in place, that we make sure that they work and work well, those that are designed to have appropriate levels of checks and balances. Lastly,
not just work well, but also have effective monitoring and evaluation systems that are transparent and trustworthy.
Indeed, because if we're not collecting the data and analyzing and really checking and following up, then it really is for naught. Our final question to you, yes, go ahead.
I can just add one more that pertains to our integrity in public life. There is a code of conduct in Chapter 24.1 of the IPLA that lays out the code, what is required, what are the standards required of persons who operate at top levels in the public service, who are members of boards, but it also applies to all persons performing public functions. So I would say, yes, it's giving more work for us as Integrity Commission, but there should be continuous education about our code of conduct to ensure that when persons get into office and they continue working throughout their years, they fully understand what are the expectations as enshrined in the code of conduct in the Integrity in Public Life Act.
If your country does not have such an act or you wish to update it, you can check in with what's available in Trinidad and other territories. We can always learn from each other and help to build that ethical leadership standard right across the region. Mrs. Inniss, I want to thank you so much for making yourself available to share with us. You've been listening to the Caribbean Leadership Radio Series. Please check with this station for other episodes in our series. To learn more about the Caribbean Leadership Program, please visit our website at www.caribbeanleadership.org. Thanks for joining us.